place without, because Zoe Howe, the street's gone, forget about the street. Zoe Howe, it was Zoe Street Howe, that was at the inaugural Talking Musical Revolution with 1/4 of the subject of the book that she was talking about, which was Viv Albertine from the Slits, and that was the 26th of July 2009, I think. Was that right? Yeah. So Zoe come along to the Secret Garden party, and we had a tent that was pretty much empty, really, and but it was great. It was great event, and Chris Salovich was there as well. So Zoe is an inaugural Talking Musical Revolutionary, an author of numerous books. The most recent, or the one that's imminent, is on one of Talking Musical Revolution's real fucking heroes, Wilko Johnson. Graves Reeves has arrived from Brentford. He knows all about the coruscating power of Wilko Johnson. Is that alright with Graves? Where are you? Come downstairs for some shit. Oh, there you go. Good. Okay, so Zoe is going to read a book which I loved when I last read it. Here's Ian McCann's arrived. Give a clap for Ian McCann. Yeah! Fantastic. And Joan is up there. Well, let me see. Yeah, fantastic. Anyway, Zoe's going to read from James, and you might notice the thematic link with the last piece of music that was played, because Zoe's going to read from James Joyce's portrait of the artist as a young man. So, a big hand, please, for Zoe.
All through his boyhood, he had mused upon that which he had so often thought to be his destiny, and when the moment had come for him to obey the call, he turned aside, obeying a wayward instinct. Now time lay between. The oils of ordination would never anoint his body. He had refused. Why? He turned seaward from the road at Dolly Mount, and as he passed onto the thin wooden bridge, he felt the planks shaking with the tramp of heavily shod feet. The squad of Christian brothers was on its way back from the Bull, and had begun to pass 2 by 2 across the bridge. Soon the whole bridge was trembling and resounding. The uncouth faces passed him 2 by 2, stained yellow or red or livid by the sea. And as he strove to look at them with ease and indifference, a faint stain of personal shame and commiseration rose to his own face. Angry with himself, he tried to hide his face from their eyes by gazing down sideways into the shallow, swirling water under the bridge. He still saw a reflection therein of their top-heavy silk hats and humble tape-like collars and loosely hanging clerical clothes. Brother Hickey, Brother Quaid, Brother McCardle, their piety would be like their names, like their faces, like their clothes. It was idle for him to tell himself that their humble and contrite hearts, it might be, paid a far richer tribute of devotion than his had ever been, a gift tenfold more acceptable than his elaborate adoration. It was idle for him to move himself to be generous towards them, to tell himself that if he ever came to their gates stripped of his pride, beaten and in beggars' weeds, that they would be generous towards him, loving him as themselves. Idle and embittering, finally, to argue against his own dispassionate certitude that the commandment of love bade us not to love our neighbour as ourselves with the same amount and intensity of love, but to love him as ourselves with the same kind of love. He drew forth a phrase from his treasure and spoke it softly to himself. A day of dappled seaborne clouds. The phrase and the day and the scene harmonised in accord. Words. Was it their colours? He allowed them to glow and fade, hue after hue. Sunrise gold, the russet green of apple orchards, azure of waves, the grey-fringed fleece of clouds. No, it was not their colours. It was the poise and balance of the period itself. Did he then love the rhythmic rise and fall of words better than their associations of legend and colour? Or was it that, being as weak of sight as he was shy of mind, he drew less pleasure from the reflection of the glowing, sensible world, through the prism of language many-coloured and richly storied, than from the contemplation of an inner world of individual emotions, mirrored perfectly in a lucid, supple, periodic prose. He passed from the trembling bridge onto firm land again. At that instant, as it seemed to him, the air was chilled, and looking askance towards the water, he saw a flying squall, darkening and crisping suddenly the tide. A faint click at his heart, a faint throb in his throat, told him once more of how his flesh dreaded the cold, infrahuman odour of the sea. Yet he did not strike across the downs on his left, but held straight on along the spine of rocks that pointed against the river's mouth. A veiled sunlight lit up faintly the grey sheet of water where the river was embayed. In the distance along the course of the slow-flowing Liffey, slender masts flecked the sky, and more distant still, the dim fabric of the city lay prone in haze. Like a scene on some vague arras, old as man's weariness, the image of the seventh city of Christendom was visible to him across the timeless air. He raised his eyes towards the slow-drifting clouds, dappled and seaborne. They were voyaging across the deserts of the sky, a host of nomads on the march, voyaging high over Ireland, westward bound. The Europe they had come from lay out there beyond the Irish Sea. Europe of strange tongues, and valleyed and citadelled, and of entrenched and marshalled races. He heard a confused music within him as of memories and names, which he was almost conscious of, but could not capture even for an instant. Then the music seemed to recede, to recede, to recede, and from each receding trail of nebulous music there fell always one long-drawn calling note, piercing like a star the dusk of silence. Again, 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 a voice from beyond the world was calling.